So it's official, and it's been official for a while now. The Vancouver Canucks have named Patrik ALLVIN'S as their newest general manager. He is the very first Swedish GM in NHL history, if I recall correctly. And he is a guy that is going to be stepping into the roles to try to fix this team. Now, here is the press release on the Canucks website if we go over and read what they have to say. Jim Rutherford welcomed ALLVIN'S to the organization, and he says he's pleased to do so to Vancouver. Patrik and I worked together for 7 years in the Pittsburgh Penguins system, and I believe he will be an excellent general manager. He has won 3 Stanley Cups and has experience at all levels of hockey operations. He is intelligent, works hard, makes strong decisions, and I believe he will help us build a winning team in Vancouver. ALLVIN'S, getting asked about the opportunity, says he is grateful and humbled for the opportunity, and he wants to thank Jim and the Aquilini family for their belief in him. Leading an NHL team in Canada is an honor, and building a championship team in Vancouver is our goal. Jim has assembled a diverse and talented hockey ops group in Vancouver, and I look forward to working closely with all of them as we build a team that fans will be proud of and will ultimately compete again for a Stanley Cup. Now, ALLVIN'S is 47 years old, which in my opinion is pretty young, is it not? For an NHL GM position at least. And he has spent the past 16 seasons with the Pittsburgh Penguins, most recently serving as an assistant GM. In this role, he was involved in all aspects of hockey ops and oversaw the Penguins' amateur scouting efforts in North America and Europe. Prior to this, he was... Okay, you know what? Screw that. We're not going to read that. Let's go out there and actually take a look at Patrik ALLVIN'S and his elite prospects profile. This is kind of why this video took a while, because I wanted to go out there and really research, try to see and take a look at what exactly it was the body of work ALLVIN'S has had as an executive in the past. So, Patrik ALLVIN'S, born in 1974, used to be a player. He played in the Hockey Allsvenskan, he played in Norway, he played in the ECHL too. Pretty good to see the diversity within his player profile. But in 2002-2003, he became a European scout for the Montreal Canadiens. He held a title with this organization for 4 years. What I did was I took a look at the 2003 up to 2006 NHL entry drafts and looked at Montreal Canadiens European draft players. These are probably guys that Patrik ALLVIN'S had a hand in scouting and picking out. And it's actually a pretty good list that the Canadiens have when it comes to their European guys in this time frame. Sure, not everybody the Canadiens drafted from Europe from 03 to 06 was perfect. The very first guy they drafted, in fact, was their 10th overall pick in 03, Andrei Kostitsyn, which everybody kind of realizes the story that happened there, so we're just going to move on. But in the 6th round, 177th overall, Christopher Heino Lindberg. Nobody, he didn't play in the NHL. Take a look at Oscar Korpikari, 217th overall. He did not play in the NHL either, but the next guy who did, 271st overall, 03 draft, 9th round, from Bratislav in the Slovakia League, Jaroslav Halak. Pretty good guy. Like, yeah, he's a legit NHL player. So there you go. There's one example of a European drafted Hab from 03 to 06 that had himself an impact. 2004, you take a look at the other guys here. From the 3rd round, Alexei Eklund, pretty good player over there. From the 5th round, you have Mikhail Grabovski, again, a good player. Then you go down to the 9th round, and you see who they took from the Switzerland League. It's Mark Streit. Very nice, too. In 05, there were a few more duds. There's Juraj Mikus, who was taken out of the Slovakian League. He wasn't really amounting to anything at the NHL level, but their other pick from Belarus was Sergei Kostitsyn, so there you go. Then in the 2006 NHL Entry Draft, the Canadiens did not draft anybody from Europe that became an NHL player, but just considering the names that the Habs ended up getting, 2 Kostitsyns, you have yourselves Grabovski, Alexei Eklund, Mark Streit, Jaroslav Halak too. I'd say that this is a pretty good crop of European players, especially drafted where they were in these drafts. And because Patrik ALLVIN'S was a European scout with the Habs at the moment, I kind of would like to believe that he had a hand in picking these guys. Then you take a look at what he did from 07 to 2012. He was a European scout for the Penguins, but in 2012 he took over the director of European scouting label. So pretty much from 07 to 2017 for the Penguins, Patrik ALLVIN'S was a European scout for the team, if not the director of European scouting. And if you take a look at the Penguins and try to see who they've drafted from Europe, they don't really draft from Europe often. And it's a pretty noticeable trend. In 2007, everybody they took was from a Canadian hockey league. So, yeah, there you go, straight up. In '08, though, there was indeed a player they took, Alexander Pacioretty. He was one of the 4 players they took in that draft. In '09, they had themselves Victor Ekblom at the end of that draft. He didn't really amount to anything. In 2010, you have yourselves Tom Kuhnhackl, who was a very good German player taken in the 4th round. He's a pretty alright pick for where he was in the draft. And then as you go up forward, you can just kind of see that there isn't really a big body of success when it comes to European drafted guys, other than Oscar Sundqvist, who I guess you could say was okay, as well as Dominic Simon, who was taken in 2015 and who's probably played a lot better than a 5th round pick has in the past. But either way, you have yourselves what is Patrik Allvin coming out here and becoming the director of amateur scouting for the Penguins in 2017-2018. It's a title he held for a few years until last season when Jim Rutherford actually left the Penguins. He became the interim GM, and then he became the assistant GM, and then he was the assistant GM this year, and now he's the regular GM of the Vancouver Canucks, following in the footsteps of Jim Rutherford, heading over to Vancouver after being involved in Pittsburgh. And a lot of people are going to go out there and criticize the 2017-18 run of draft picks up until recently of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And to be fair, they only really had like 1 pick that was in the 1st round in that span, and that was Samuel Poulin. Everybody else, though, you take a look at the European guys. Philip Hollander's a guy that I like a lot. He's been swapped around from Toronto to Pittsburgh, back to Pittsburgh and Toronto and all that. You have yourselves Nathan Legare in the 2019 draft. I like this guy a lot. Joel Blomqvist is a goaltender taken in 2020 that apparently the Vancouver Canucks were going to take because they thought he was going to be very good, but the Penguins swooped in and took him instead. And so, because the Penguins don't really have the best picks, I don't really know if it's all too fair to go out there and judge ALLVI'N'S draft history that much, but regardless, he's going to be the guy here in Vancouver, and if we want to go over some of the quotes here, he has one thing to say about a guy that he actually scouted before. I remember meeting a tiny kid for lunch in Sundsvall, Sweden. I think he had schnitzel, said Patrik Allvin, of what he remembers from Elias Pettersson's draft year. I'm on Reddit, by the way, taking a look at the thread they have of all the quotes compiled of what Allvin and Rutherford say about this team. Patrik Allvin, as he details what Brian Burke told him about Vancouver, he mentioned that he drafted the Sedins. Nice spot of dry humor because Brian Burke likes to talk about that a lot. They asked Allvin about his scouting philosophy. He says you have to be open-minded and looking for talent. Like Rutherford, he cited looking for hidden gems in Europe and the NCAA, as well as the need to draft smartly after the 1st round, which is something that I think Allvin has demonstrated as a member of the Canadiens and to some extent the Penguins as well. Pittsburgh has had success developing playing in the AHL, though, which is another part of what makes this team so special. When Pittsburgh was winning cups in 16 and 17, they just had all these random-ass guys from, like, Wilkes-Barre Scranton making the lineup and being good. Jake Gensel came out of nowhere, Brian Rust came out of nowhere, Connor Sherry came out of nowhere, and it's all development. This is what Allvin says. That's something we want to emphasize going forward. It's not a sprint to make the NHL, it's a marathon. Jim Rutherford also came out here and he rattled off a few things to do on the Canucks to-do list. A new practice facility, which is going to be cool. Really, really cool. I can't wait to see that. Evaluate and deliver a development camp, a rookie tournament, and upgrading the facilities in Abbotsford and at Rogers Arena. Very, very nice right there. There are still some things they can do with management as well. We have a couple of places where we can add, Rutherford says, of his front office, beyond the addition of Emily Castonguay and Rachel Dory, whom he said were very important. He also says that he sees a possibility for an expanded role of Ryan Johnston too. Ryan Johnson just gets it out. Back in for Alex Burrows is up in the air scores. Okay, I know, I have to throw that in there every time we talk about Ryan Johnston. Patrik Allvin said as part of his visit to Vancouver, he had a 2-hour lunch with the Sedins as well. He sees a big role for them going forward. What they said about culture and identity and standards, that's something I too believe in. Finally, wrapping up what the Vancouver Canucks have with their new management team. Some big decisions are coming up, Rutherford says. That feels like the money quote, according to Thomas Drance. Among the key quotes that Jim Rutherford gave the Canucks fans to chew on today, a team that's up against the cap and not in the playoffs is not a great thing. I agree. Some big decisions are coming up, and we have to add more players to get to where we want to go. Talk to me in the comments your thoughts about Patrik Allvin and the Vancouver Canucks' newest direction going forward. Rutherford, Allvin, Castonguay. You have Dory on the analytics, and a whole bunch of other players that are likely to getting moved, and more guys being brought in. Talk to me in the comments, what do you think? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.